I'm Celia Rowlson Hall and the choreographer for the 31st Miu Miu Women's Tale. I became involved because I most recently worked with Mona and Amanda on a film, The Testament of Anne Lee, and William Rexner, the DP, and so we all had a very good thing going and continuing the love. And so Mona said, I'm making a film with puppets, but there is a dance element. Will you please come on and choreograph? And what's very fun about this project is, I am not going to become a puppet master overnight, nor are the dancers. So we very much are looking at the puppets as like a continuation of the body of the dancers. And so that's the way that I thought about the choreography as well, that we're not trying to do something we can't do and bring actually like the puppets into our wheelhouse of dance and choreography and movement. I mean, being a part of the Miu Miu family, I would say is one of the most important connections I have made in my personal and professional life. Truly, like every person I have met has been so warm and inspiring and loving. And I feel like the Miu Miu family it keeps growing with more directors and more wonderful people. And it's just such a community where I feel absolutely like held and celebrated for being just who I am. And when I made my Women's Tale back in 2016, I didn't really sort of believe it was this good of like, you can do anything you want and go. And it was like, but what's the caveat? And there's none. And so anytime I get to work with Miu Miu, I am like first there. Yeah, the first couple of days that I spent in the studio, I just had a couple of dancers with me and I didn't even want to think about the choreography. I just wanted to understand how these puppets move kind of like on their own in terms of, okay, they have bend in the elbows, but not really, there's no mobility in the back. And so sort of just working with them so that they didn't feel other and just like the way that like I had everybody name theirs, mine was Tabitha, so that it felt sort of like friendly. And basically, yeah, it was just more like it was almost like getting to know your puppet. And so once I finally got comfortable with like holding the puppet on its own or with the harness and figuring out how she moves, and then we tried different places of connection. Like we had sticks for their arms at one point. And then I said, that doesn't feel very intimate. And I'd rather have like be holding onto the arms. And then there's so much more fluidity that you can find in it. So sort of the first couple of days were just like exploration of how can we make these move in the most believable way. And then the next part of that was realizing like, if you hold their arm here, but then have their head rotate. Anytime the head animated, it added like something very special to it. So it was sort of an exploration that then adding the pieces of like what makes them feel most alive and then sort of building the choreography around that. And slower was better. So like all the dancers are just like a little under speed so that then you can read like the puppet's movement more. It was just, playing with timing and sort of little things make up the whole, basically. And get to know your puppet so that it doesn't feel like this big, I cast all tall dancers so that it could feel like there was a difference between the puppet heights too. And that was another part of like for casting and finding the sort of the right length of body for the puppet. I think, it's interesting because I think that it's, to me, because the sort of the base was so strong of the groundwork of we're going to bring in these directors with their specific visions and allow them to go out and make a short film of whatever is creatively inspiring them at that time, that like that has never changed. So really like the foundation was so strong. So now it's just sort of like we're just building with more and more directors. And so I think really there's just like diversity of voices that's happening inside of that with the wonderful directors that you're choosing. Some I've seen their work. I know of them. Some I haven't. And then I get to discover their work. And so I really think just, it's like you're growing the family, and more people are knowing about it. But I think that's because it came from such a strong foundation that hasn't changed. I think that I definitely probably always approach, no matter what, everything from a director's brain, in terms of even when I am a choreographer for a director, I'm still thinking about what would the director want inside of this, and like how can the dance fulfill the vision. And so I think I am always approaching it from a director's point of view, no matter what. But also when I don't know, when I'm directing, I'm always thinking of like the choreography of everything. So to me, there's so almost like melded in my way of seeing that I'm really never not just a choreographer, never not just a director. I think I'm always sort of bringing both of them, even though the role might be different. I think that I probably feel most like a director no matter what, because even when I'm choreographing, I'm still sort of looking at it through the lens of a director as to what would this director sort of want to see, and how to fulfill that vision or that storyline. But sort of at this point, though, I really feel like the way that I direct and the way that I choreograph, they're almost a bit one and the same, because I'm always, as a director, I'm sort of thinking about the choreography of the scene. And as a choreographer, I'm still thinking about the direction of the scene. And I always want to be able to sort of, no matter what, I'm going to bring all of me to whatever project it is.